Ichiro, as far as the public balloting is concerned, has 100% of the vote. And this is relevant because only one player in Major League history has ever received 100% of the vote, and that is Yankees closer Mariano Rivera. I think my most fervent Hall of Fame take is the fact that other players have not gotten 100% of the vote in the history of the institution is a total sham and delegitimizes it to an extent. The idea that people just didn't vote for Ken Griffey Jr. or Cal Ripken Jr., like what are we doing? Or Randy Johnson, like what are we doing here? What did you watch? And the notion that players should be forced to wait a year is so goofy and wonky to me. And I genuinely hope that Ichiro does receive 100% of the vote.
I do too. And the reality is it's impossible to know because so many of these guys are so obvious that just being like, well, of course you should have 100% clearly is not enough, right? The fact that
no podcast is hopping on the mics and debating whether or not Ichiro Suzuki should be in the Hall of Fame. That is not a conversation that is worth having because the statistical record is so overwhelming. There's no point in even talking about it. And so we can't conceive of someone receiving the ballot and not marking his name down. But that happened with Cal Ripken. That happened with Ken Griffey. That happens with guys all the time.
Everybody. I'm looking
Derek
at
Jeter.
Derek Jeter, who has the second highest percentage ever at 99.7. Griffey, 99.3. Ricky Henderson only got 94.8. So again, the size of the electorate changes slightly over the years. Babe Ruth, only 95.1%.
I love Babe Ruth getting 95 is great. Yeah. So Babe Ruth, right? He's in the first class.
He's not in the first class. That's why it's so incredible. He's in the second class, I believe. Or no, he is in the first class. I apologize.
But
he's in the first class. He got him and Honus Wagner got a higher percent. Walter Johnson only got 83%, and he was in the first class.
What did people think was coming?
Right. Right. How at that point Babe Ruth had hit like 500 more home runs than everybody else. They're like,
I don't know. I gotta see what else is coming down the pipe.
But okay, but that's 100 years ago, right? But even more recently, the fact that as you mentioned, right, like Randy Johnson, 97%, like Johnny Bench, 96%.
What?
It's goofy. So anyway, will Ichiro get 100%? Does it actually matter? No, especially because like the reality is, as we just mentioned, we can't predict it, and it's not going to make people love Ichiro any more or less. I think and the fact that Mariano was the first, so it's like yes, he would be the first position player to do it, which would I guess mean something. But I don't know. But I guess let's just say that. Do you think it'll happen? Because I mean, this is someone for the last few years I've been thinking. I remember thinking about it before Mariano happened to being like Ichiro will be the first, right? I like that. I remember thinking that at the time. So in that way, it would be validating.
A take I've had about Ichiro for a long time is that Ichiro had the fewest enemies, the fewest haters of any ball player in recent memory. Part of that has to do with his being on the Mariners, who did not exactly have a foil for much of his tenure in Seattle.
He wasn't like breaking hearts in the postseason.
Yeah. Like Mariano, right, was like killing the Red Sox all the time, you know? And so you can imagine that there are a certain type of voter, not to say it's rational, who could talk themselves into a certain line of thinking. And I just don't know if you can do that for Ichiro. Now, for Ichiro, the argument one could make, again, I would not make this argument, is if you look just at the MLB statistics, he only has like 60 wins above replacement. Okay. Now, yes, that's because he came over stateside at age 27 after he'd already been like the best player in Japan. But you could squint your eyes and stare and take a nap and jump around on your head and convince yourself that maybe you didn't vote for Ichiro.
But to me, it's not. There's no point. Like I said, there's no point in having a conversation about that. I think the point that is more important that you're making is just his lovability, his just likability, his popularity, what he meant to so many people. Forget whether he's exact percentage of the vote that he's getting, just his status as a baseball figure is fairly unmatched certainly in our lifetime, and probably if you go back even farther, because of just what he meant to to not just, of course, Mariners fans for an extremely long time, to obviously an entire country who, not that he was the first guy to come over, but certainly the most successful that we've seen, of course, before Ohtani at the very least. And he changed the game. And for him to be that good that quickly, to win the MVP and the Rookie of the Year that just immediately, and just statistically, I mean, it's not just the batting averages. The fact that he was intentionally walked as often as he was is both, of course, an indictment of the Mariners, but it's not like the guy wasn't going to run. I mean, he had over 500 stolen bases, but people were just like, no, we ain't messing with this guy. He is a menace.
So that's a no-brainer. I hope he gets 100%. I think he's a great player to be the first position player to get 100%.
I agree.